Hello and welcome to the Progress Theory, where we discuss how to implement scientific principles for optimizing human performance. I am Dr. Phil Price, and on today's episode, we are joined by former Royal Marine Commando and published author Gareth Timmins. Now, I saw Gareth's new book, Becoming the 0.1%, on the Amazon pre-order list, and I instantly knew that I wanted him on the Progress Theory to make it through all of the training to prepare you to fight in the harshest environments in the world. You need to have such a high level of skill, determination, resilience, and communication. In this episode, Gareth details how he kept a diary during all that time during his training and his military career. And since he's reflected on it, it's allowed him to pass on the greatest lessons that he learnt on during this time. These aren't lessons for the military. These are lessons that you can apply to your everyday life and allow you to reach your full potential. As always, please follow the Progress Theory on Instagram, YouTube, and your podcast app of choice. And while you're there, check out all of our other episodes. Here is Gareth Timmins. Hey Gareth, how you doing?
How you doing, Phil?
Yeah,
I'm very well, thanks.
Brilliant. No, I'm not too bad myself. Thank you so much for coming on to the Progress Theory. I'll have to admit, the first time I heard of you was when I was searching Amazon and looking for new books to read. And
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so I saw your book, and it's the title that really jumped out at me. It was like Becoming the 0.1%. I was like, that's really up my street. And then started reading into you as an author. And I thought, this is one of the things where it's quite beneficial having a podcast, because I just wanted to ask you questions. And I was like, well, brilliant. Let's get you onto the Progress Theory and start asking a bit more about, the genesis of the book and your ideas behind mindset and how that leads into your philosophy about becoming the 0.1%. Because I've been fascinated by the military for quite some time, because I think there's some skills and some discipline that you learn in the military that really transfers well into sort of general population, to the point where I think a lot of the general population are really seeing how beneficial it is to have those skills, and they want to learn from the military. How can I apply this mindset into my everyday life? And then because of that, I just thought that really matched up with your book. So I was like, brilliant. Okay, Gareth, I've got to get you onto the Progress Theory. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much, mate. It's always a pleasure. And as soon as I saw your podcast, I thought, yeah, it looks fantastic, and I love what you're doing. And especially that it's kind of mindset based. I think it ties really well in with what I've created and what I'm doing. So yeah, thank you for having me, mate.
Oh, not at all. I think we definitely have quite similar goals. We might frame them in different ways, but the end goal was always the same. So I think that's why, this is brilliant for both of us. Do you want to give a little bit of a background into yourself?
Sure. So I played rugby from a very young age, and reached a high level at quite a young age. I played for Hunslet Hawks, Bradford Bulls, and then Leeds Rhinos. For different reasons, it didn't come off to do with contract disputes, and I wanted at the time to play for Leeds. Being young, Leeds were at the top, and anything below that were kind of you were kind of going down the pecking order, and I didn't want to. Kind of fell out of love with the game, and then I joined the Marines. I applied for the Marines, joined the Marines at 20, did 5.5 years, which were fantastic, absolutely brilliant, did some fantastic stuff in there. And then I left and went to work out private in Somalia, Afghanistan for the Department of Defence, doing close protection.
Oh, cool.
Did some stuff in Egypt. And then I stopped doing that hostile, and then went down to work in London, where I'd worked for a number of blue chip companies, high profile people. And then I went to uni and I studied forensic psychology. I did that, and behaviour change. And then in recent years, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've wrote a book based on a diary that I took in training. I wrote a diary from leaving my house to reaching the end of training, and I kept it for about 11 months every day. And it's never been done before. So I wrote it up about 5 years ago, the diary entries. And then in more recent times, once I got a literacy agent, I then added 34 lessons that the reader can use in order to develop an elite mindset that are psychologically grounded. And it ended up getting numerous publishing offers, and it's due out in 3 weeks today. So, yeah, it's been quite a journey and quite, I suppose, quite a contrast in terms of what I've been doing over the last 20 years.
Yeah. What's the exact date that the book is going to be released?
Sure. So the book comes out on the 26th of August. So it's been quite a journey. It should have come out. There was talk of it coming out last year, but obviously with COVID and stuff, it just got delayed. And then we went through, because the diary entries, and it's captured literally everything of the experience, but also the progression from growing from a civilian to an elite soldier. It had to go through quite a lengthy, I suppose, scrutinisation and sign-off by the Ministry of Defence. So that's took quite a long time. We should have had a really good build-up of publicity, but we only got sign-off from the MOD a couple of months ago. And I mean, that were massive, because I always thought, and especially the publisher, when they took it on, getting it through the MOD were going to be quite tough and quite challenging, given the content that's in it. But I think a saving grace is because it's been, well, I say so long, it's been 15 years since I went in and training has changed. I think that they were quite happy to pass it. So it's literally all been signed off in its authentic and original form, which is absolutely brilliant.
What are the MOD worried about? Why do they need to sign it off?
I think if I was self-publishing, I wouldn't have had to do it. The problem is that when you mainstream or traditional publishing, as they call it, you stand the risk of the MOD coming back on you. And I think what's in the book at the minute is like the daily fight and struggle, really, of a recruit, but also it kind of highlights how you were treated by your training team. And there's various practices in there that I suppose could be frowned upon, or it could attract negative attention. But unbelievably, they've passed it all through.
Yeah, regarding the MOD potentially be worried about some of the practices that you do during the training, and they're worried that people might almost frown upon those practices. Ultimately, it led you becoming an elite soldier, an elite fighter. So
yeah,
there must be some method to the madness. It's a lot of those methods must work. They really develop in skills and a level of resilience in you to be able to get into those and perform in those situations, which most people will never be going into, like a war zone. So I guess there must be, some, despite some people may look down or frown upon it, there must be some, clear reasons why they do it in the training.
Sure. I mean, the training, you could say, is probably more, but back then was void of any kind of scientific kind of basis. But I've said this in the book, it is the level of human engineering that is factored into that course, and how they get somebody from being a weary civilian to then being an elite soldier come the end of training is absolutely startling. It's unbelievable. The person that you see at the start of training looks disorientated, disillusioned, scared out of place. They wear the military uniform like it's fancy dress. It looks ridiculous. 32 weeks later, and that person's running in from the commando tests, and they look every single part, the embodiment of what you would think to be a Royal Marine Commando. The transition and what they've gone through in that period is absolutely unbelievable. And I'm now one of the psychological performance coaches for Cast Tigers Rugby League. And some of the methods that we got taught in the Marines, we've applied to the rugby, and they've been absolutely phenomenal in transforming how the players see the game and how they deal with adversity, especially in the transition from going from a defence to attack. And we do often have the argument of, although sport is very much science-based now, I absolutely don't believe that you can develop a resilient and elite mindset in terms of performance based on science alone. I think science restricts it physically. And I think you have to be pushed completely out of your comfort zone to areas that would not be deemed scientific to develop the elite mindset that you need to be absolutely unstoppable at any kind of thing that you do in your life. And I just think that science has the propensity to stop that, to limit that.
I guess science is there as acting as guidelines as to knowing what to do to prepare yourself physically, and I guess to a sense psychologically. But again, it's a guideline based on science that we've currently performed that's given us a base understanding of what we currently know. But it's still an art form how you put it all together. You know, you can't say, well, the science says this, so we're going to do exactly this. Every person, every team, every player is going to be a little bit different. So how you individualize that is going to be very creative. And ultimately, science is going to give us an understanding of when to push really hard and when to pull back to avoid, either burnout or whatever it might be. But ultimately, you still need to, like you described, stepping way out of that comfort zone, because if you don't, you're never going to be exposed to the environment that only few people actually get to. And how can you get resilient if you've never been into the environment where you need to perform? And I guess
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Like you got a war zone, haven't you? Like you went into training for a war zone. That's a very specific environment that very few people go to. And then if you think of elite performance with rugby league, there are a lot of similarities, because very few people get to that level and experience that level of environment performing at that level. So I can completely understand your ideas around developing an appropriate mindset and how difficult it is to be able to develop a mindset for it, because very few people have been there.
Yeah, I think just kind of one on that is that in the diary entries between like week 8 and week 10, we had 12 hours sleep in 2 weeks. And I've said that numerous occasions, and people are like, what, 12 hours sleep in 2 weeks? And it's absolutely correct. We went on an exercise and they kept us up for about 5 days with no sleep.
Wow.
And then we had like a couple of hours sleep when we got back to camp, and then we were up again and kept awake all that night. And trying to kind of crawl your way through and get out of sleep deprivation is absolutely unbelievable. There were like lads falling asleep stood up, which is an experience in itself. And then you'd be falling asleep stood up. And I think it's in them moments where you actually meet your innermost self of who you are. And it's them kind of experiences throughout training that turn people off. And a lot of people make massive decisions about the future. And I think their justification for continuation in those moments, it is kind of the killer of dreams is sleep deprivation in the Marines.
So taking that into account, what are the biggest lessons you feel you learned from your time training for the Marines?
So the biggest lesson that I kind of got really was to absolutely have full trust in myself. And by that, I mean full trust in my emotions and how to manage them. And I think the experience, it absolutely gives you that. You have to be able to manage your emotions in such a way that you have to bring yourself under control. And you have to, because there's so many extreme and arduous exercises and things that you have to do in training, that you've just got to really find a way of controlling yourself and pushing through times when you don't think something's humanly possible. For instance, when you haven't been to sleep for 2 days and you've got to do 25 miles across Dartmoor carrying 100 plus pounds of kit, when you're physically exhausted, you've had, I suppose, little water and little to eat. It's just knowing that, I suppose, that you will never quit and that you will get there regardless, and knowing that you've got that ability to do that. And I think arguably that is the biggest lesson really that you take from it, is that anything is possible. Anything is possible, and that you fully back yourself. You know that you can. I suppose once you've done it, I've always kind of thought I can do absolutely anything. Anything that I want to do now that's available in this world, I will give it my best shot, and I back myself to do it. There's certain things, like when I did like forensic psychology, I thought, yeah, it's a really, really tough course, but it doesn't scare me, it doesn't frighten me, and I will go on and have a go at that. And I just know that I'll be able to. You find that you can withstand suffering in a sense of adversity, the suffering incurred by adversity, and you're able just to withstand that and be able to push through when you become disillusioned. It's just about, that's the biggest lesson really, is you learn your own, I suppose, level of mental resilience and what you're willing to withstand.
It sounds like in these situations during the training, they put you under so much stress, whether it be sleep deprivation, very extreme environments, tasks that you've got to think of what to do and you're sleep deprived, to the point where, there's so much stress, but you still got through it. So you have the ability to deal with high levels of stress coming from all sorts of different angles. So now when you take on a challenge, even though it gets hard because you might need to, if I think of a real world example, well, okay, your degree program where all of a sudden you've got to do your degree, but there's, still finances at home you need to think about, family you've got to think about, so many different things you've got to acknowledge and work with and balance. That can be completely stressful, but because you've dealt with so much stress, so much adversity in the past, that almost feels like the stress is not as much. And so in contrast, you're like, well, I've been through worse, so let's just crack on.
That's exactly it. And I think that's a really key point. I think when you've experienced something like that and you've come through the other side successfully, I don't think there's much more that you could do in form of a challenge. The Royal Marines is so like risk laden in terms of the odds are really stacked against you. That's why I've named the book Becoming the 0.1%, because back in 2003, 2005, when I don't know if you can remember that the famous advert that depicted the guy running across what is would be common, and it was saying like, where do you quit? Here, or here.
Okay, yeah.
And he goes into the water chute, and he gets stuck in the sheep dip. Now that advert where 99.9% need not apply, and that represented an actual statistic back in the day of your success from walking into a careers office to reaching the end of training. There were only 0.1% that made it. And that's why I called the book that, because that advert were out when I kind of went for it.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. I can really see the link there. Why do you think it's so low? Like 0.1% is one, it comes across as such a small margin, but if you reach that level, it must be so satisfying to know that you are, if 1,000 people went for something, you'd be that one person that got there.
I think people go in for all different reasons. And I think a lot of people that kind of go for it, they're in love with the fascination of it. How it looks, how it sounds, and I suppose, the interpretation of what they think they will be doing. Now, when you get in, I think the environment down at Lympstone, where they train the Marines, is so hostile and it's just so uniquely different from life in the Marines. So training is very, very different from life after. They call it being in the bubble, and it doesn't accurately represent life as a trained soldier. And I think people get in there and it doesn't live up to their expectations. It catches them off guard. It all comes down to the applying pressure fill and the stress. It's like in the first few weeks of training, you're in foundation in a place called Foundation Block, which is like your Full Metal Jacket sketch where you've got like 60 beds and all stuff like that. And you have to hand wash your stuff in two or three washers, and then you've got to dry it in a drying room. Now, not everybody can hand wash at the same time, so that process, it keeps you up all night waiting to hand wash your stuff, and then you've got to wait for it to dry in a drying room, and then iron it and get it ready for inspection the following morning. And that process just keeps you up. You can't sleep.
Wow.
And that's how they do it. It's incredible what they do. And I think it's things like that. And I think psychologically people get in and they forget why they've left. They forget why they wanted to leave where they were behind. They look back with rose-tinted glasses and think that and kind of reach a willingness to accept the environment they were trying desperately to evade. And a lot of people leave for girlfriends for whatever reason. But there were 51 lads that started with us, and 11 of us passed at the end. And that's just training. There's so much fallout from the selection process before and the various other stages of the I suppose the joining part of it.
Yeah. Based on what you just said, do you think there is skills that maybe the general population maybe lack, and maybe that's why stuff like SES Who's Dares wins, and you've got a number of former military personnel that have written books as well? I'm thinking Ant Middleton, Dean Stott, people like that. There's a market. People want to learn these particular skills. Now, when you describe what you just described, how someone was moving away from their original environment, go into Marines training, and then all of a sudden they feel really uncomfortable in that Marine training, so they leave again. It's almost like there are skills that they are not aware of that they need to be able to deal with that level of stress, because maybe they were stressed in their original environment, they didn't like it, so they moved away, got into a new environment with training, new stress, didn't like it, okay, I'm going to move back, and you kind of forget what the original stresses were. Do you think that there are skills that the general population now need that would really help them from learning from guys like yourself who are giving lessons through the stories and experiences that they have?
I think what the military does geniusly is they train you and invite you to understand yourself in such a way that you're able to go out and operate in the most extreme environments and experiences that are available for humans to go and expose themselves to. And I think in that training and what you're expected to go out and do, I think in those moments you have to absolutely you have to control your emotions, and you have to find ways of doing kind of and seeing and having to mitigate unimaginable things. And I think that when you come back and you apply that to Civilian Street, not everybody has that experience. And I think as a result, not many people know or understand their own mind and what they're capable of doing. And I think the military, or elements of the military, just allow you to you gain a real rich understanding of the mind and how to control emotions. I wrote at the backstage of the book that naively I thought that when I got to the end of training, I would be completely stripped of emotion, and I wouldn't feel fearful of anything again, and nothing would really faze me. And I got to the commando test, and I absolutely was scared to death. And I did have those awful feelings of, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm going to fail. But there were another part of me that were like, you can do it. You can do this. And we need to push on, and failure is not an option. And you're constantly, I suppose, redefining what you're capable of doing. And I think when you get through that and then you apply those principles and those experiences and that philosophy to Civilian Street, everybody loves it, because everybody wants to be, I think, in general, the best representation of what they can be in life. Everybody wants to. I think you always want to be somebody that you're not, or you're fascinated by various things. And I think programs like SAS Who Dares Wins, or other things like that, they really do capture that imagination, and people are fascinated by what people are prepared to put themselves through. And I think that's why they're so successful. People in general, I think, do like people getting the most out of the human body and the human mind, and trying to learn techniques of how to kind of reach that aim.
Do you think shows like SAS Dares Wins, things like your books and the mindset and lessons that you're giving in your book, are they allowing people to become more self-aware? So they have a self-awareness of what they can achieve. So linking back to your example where you started doubting yourself, but the more you went through it, you started thinking, actually, I can do it. Actually, I can do it. People don't have that awareness of where that boundary is for them. They don't know what I can and can't do. And once you put them into a stressful environment, they realize what they're capable of is much more than they originally thought. So that's completely rechanged their mindset on taking on new challenges, because they're now more aware of what they're capable of doing. And I wonder if that is all linked to, I know more and more people are taking on their own physical challenges now. They're creating brand new ones. Like we did it linked with this podcast. We're doing a number of physical challenges. Yeah, we talk about a lot of the preparation for it, but ultimately we're trying to expose the human body to challenges, environments that we've never been before, just to see what we can do. And from that, we develop a better self-awareness of what is actually possible. So it sounds like the tools that you're giving are giving that self-awareness to people, which ultimately leads them to then push themselves just that little bit further.
Sure, absolutely. So what I've done in the diary is that for each week, I've drawn out kind of a key theme of that week. And then I've explained it in terms of a life lesson and underpinned it by psychology. So the first week is compartmentalization, breaking large undertakings down. So it just speaks about how to break training and other large undertakings that you might have in life, whether that's training to do the 3 peaks, Mount Everest, whatever. And you just break it down into really small chunks. And you look at the week method, you look at the day method, and looking at the hardest point of that day to overcome. So in week 1, we deal with compartmentalization. Week 2 is on the construct of masculinity, looking at faulty stereotypes, looking at people that are extroverted and introverted, and how unbelievably the introverts in training that look tall, geeky, got to the end. All the people that kind of reinforce the stereotype of being this manly alpha male covered in tattoos and no teeth, they left after a couple of weeks. And it were an unbelievable kind of observation for me to see that what we kind of socially brought up to believe is is kind of the stereotypical ideal of masculinity is flawed. And then we looked. Then it flips onto restorative environments, looking at savanna type environments and how they can rejuvenate your mental attentional resources, all the way through to looking at. So in the gymnasium, in training, you're not allowed to fidget or scratch when sweat's pouring out your face. You've got to just stand still and not fidget, resist the urge, and that's the name of the lesson. What that means is that when you because they bring kind of human behaviour and control down to its really, really kind of archaic form, is that when you then go off on operations into OPs, observation posts, you don't fidget. And if something's crawling over your face, like in the 2018 advert, you don't push the spider off your face, because that movement could expose your position and get you killed. So everything that they do is really, really, it's absolutely incredible what they do and how much attention to detail's gone into it to produce what they need at the end. So we just look at, it's not like your typical self-help book where it's the 34 lessons are completely, in a sense, random, and it I don't know. I just think it's a bit refreshing. It just draws on a lot of things that I think, in terms of lay psychology, we know about ourselves, or we know quite a bit about society or culture, but it's not kind of backed up. We semi know it, but what I talk about is stuff that I think we should all know about to make us better human beings and perform better. So that's what I've tried to create with the lessons, really.
They sound absolutely amazing.
No, thank you. It's it's been a tough. It's been tough. Took me about a year, 18 months to get the lessons in and make sure that they were right. But they're all, like I said, they're all just diverse, Phil. They're all like just completely, in a sense, random. But they all come together to make you better if you adhere to them.
Yeah, of course. It sounds like, follow each one and they become the whole package, if you know what I mean. I think what's great is how you highlighted that, this isn't like most self-help books. These are skills that we learn, and here's the experience that I had, which showed how it can directly influence your performance in a certain way. So people from your story can see how it can improve. They can take that story and apply it to their own situation, and then see, actually, I can see how improving in performance here would actually benefit if I learned these skills. So I'm then going to implement that into my own environment. And I think the practical side is really quite important. People need those stories to see how relevant they are into their own lives, rather than to say this will be better, this was going to help improve yourself. That's funny enough. I think about 99% of mindset stuff is a bit all the samey, whereas this, and hence why I wanted to bring you on this podcast, seems like exactly the stuff that people need to actually improve their mindset and apply these skills into their everyday life. It's the 0.1% of mindset, which is what's going to make a difference.
Sure, exactly. And it's exactly that. It's like, and I don't want to downplay any self-help books that are out, because I've read quite a lot and stuff on mindset and personal development, and they're absolutely fantastic. But what I've always found is that when you've read a few really good ones, you've read them all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you try another one, they've got a different kind of way of putting it together, but you soon get bored. And I think what's really, really fantastic, and I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can here, but what's really, really fantastic is that the diary was done without any kind of intention of writing a book when I was younger. So you've got like maybe a lifetime of experience in 10 months, or maybe experience that not a lot of people will ever experience in a number of lifetimes. But then chopping into that with a psychological kind of background, it really creates something really unique. And it might not work for people, but it is in a sense, the lessons are so random, and a lot of them have definitely never been touched on in terms of the relationship with resilience and mindset. But hopefully how I've explained it and how I've tied it together with the experience in the week does allow it to form kind of a pillar of resilience and mindset and performance.
Yeah, definitely. I think your strategy here is allowing people to figure it out for themselves. You're not, okay, to have a more resilient mindset, you need to do this. It's actually, here's the lesson that I learned. Here's my story about how I learned it and how it improved my performance and what I saw during that experience. And then, yeah, that's how people can imply that into their own life or their own environment. They're not being told, okay, to improve your mindset, you need to do this. It's like, actually, no, here's my experience. Like you said, you wrote this diary without the intention of making it into like a book. But because of that, it really brings out the naturalness of the story. And then you've just tweaked it to make it more readable. So I think what you've done is exactly what the mindset community needs.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I really hope I have. I really hope I've created something kind of fresh and unique, and something that helps, that works, and that's acknowledged in a sense that I suppose it's just a fresh take on it. And yeah, that's kind of what I've aimed to do with it. It's really weird because obviously I wrote the diary, and I then put together 50 tailored submissions that went off to literacy agents to try and get a literacy agent, because for people that don't know, they hold the keys to the doors to traditional publishing. Other than that, you've got no credibility to get through the door. And that took me 6 months to someone 3 chapters, someone a business plan, someone a synopsis or a cover, whatever. And I did all that. It took me 6 months. Then I sent it off, and I did get one reply back out of about 50 submissions. And it were kind of back to the drawing board. And after a bit of a period of adjustment, I managed to bump into a literacy agent, and he just said, "Look, you need to." He said, "I love what you've done. Your title's really strong, but what I'd like you to do is think about adding lessons in for every week." And it was just like the perfect storm, because I just finished at uni, and I just had all the psychological underpinning that I could call upon to execute the lessons in such a way that I think has really brought out the best in the diary for each week. So it's just been great timing.
Yeah. I think so many people who've written mindset books start off with the lessons, and then they find things to fill in and support that lesson. Whereas you had the experience as, okay, what were my lessons from that? Okay, this is what I've derived from it. So I think you've done it the right way, whereas others are starting with the chapters and then they try and find ways of filling that chapter.
Yeah. And it's often, I think, from that, it's often experiences that are not theirs, or examples that they know about that really have got no attachment, no meat to it. And I think that a lot of kind of self-help or personal development books are very in a sense similar to what you would say are the fundamentals of losing weight. It's like if you were to tell somebody in a very basic form how to lose weight, it would be exercise more and stop putting, I suppose, put the right food in your mouth. It's very, very basic what to do, and it's the same with personal development. It's like you could say this is what you need to do. You need to prep your meals the night before. You need to get up. You need to go to the gym early. That sets your day up for success. And then you go off and you do that. And it's all about time management. But I mean, I go up and down with eating and stuff. I know what I need to do. You know how to get in good shape, but doing the basics and mastering them is a different thing. What's underlying that is like all the stresses of life, relationships, and everything that people have to compete with in order to get that underway and get that momentum. So I think it's all right sometimes telling somebody what to do and really, really breaking it down to the basics of this is how you get in better shape. This is how you become more successful. But saying it to somebody and somebody kind of enacting the plan in order to get to where they want to be are two completely different things. So I just think that by looking at the diary and seeing that I am vulnerable at times, that I don't think I can do it, that I no longer want to be there, I want to come home, but I can't validate negative opinion and validate those people that said that I would fail and I'd be home in a month. I can't do that. I think that just allows people just to see that, you know what, all these things are me, and I can relate to this. I don't want to do that. I'm fearful of social interaction of all stuff like this, but I'm going to try these steps. I'm going to try and do some of these lessons, and I just hope that it translates well, that it comes across well. There's stuff in there that I'm not particularly proud about. I've recently done the audio, and I read some stuff back that I put in. I suppose in the last 2 years, which kind of highlights my conduct when I went on leave, and it's stuff that I'm not proud about. But it provides context, and I suppose in a sense it humanizes me. I'm not saying that I'm the perfect person, and that my road to wherever's been really, really clean, and I've lived this fantastic lifestyle. I haven't at times, and it's just a very real and raw, I suppose, memoir, self-help book, really.
Right, this has been amazing, and I can't wait to read the book myself. You can pre-order it now on Amazon, and like you said, it's coming out on the 26th of August. Is that right? We said at the beginning of the podcast.
It is, yeah. The 26th of August. Yeah, you can pre-order it now on Amazon, Waterstones, and Audible.
Cool. And just to finish off, what were your 3 favourite lessons that almost like to say to the audience? What are the key ones to look out for? Because I personally found them very helpful.
Yeah, so I think the 3 that I would say to look out for really is I like restorative environments, because what that is that as human beings we have a propensity to be in natural environments of which we evolved in, and that our senses are attuned to. And it's just really important to understand that when we get stressed in urban environments and artificial places, that we do need to be in kind of the wilderness, in nature, in order to rejuvenate us as attentional resources. And I think it's really important. And a lot of companies like Apple have started putting trees and plants in the shops, because it naturally puts people at ease and people spend more psychologically. And people have started cutting onto it and manipulating it. And I really love that lesson. There's other things in there like finding the elite edge, which talks about the controller and the dismisser, 2 different types of, I suppose, hypothetical person. One that controls the environment and the daily tasks and is ruthlessly efficient with time, and the other person that continuously puts it off. And I just kind of drew my experience from 2 different types of recruits in training, and now the dismisser, come week 15, has not grasped all the skills necessary, and they're falling behind, and then they have to leave training. And that just kind of goes into life of getting up late, always being late for work, and being tired and not picking up the skills that you need in order to become successful. And then I don't know. I'd say the last one is just off the top of my head, which is the psychology of a Royal Marine Commando, a personal perspective, which is just my take on the I suppose the mindset of an elite soldier, and breaking down I think some misconceptions really that we are unintelligent and that we're kind of bullet stoppers. And it's just kind of, I think this just ties into what we spoke about at the start, mate, of the public just think that you're just this mindless person that can just go out and do these things, but you're just the same person, but you've just managed to, you've learned to manage your emotions, the uppermost limits of your emotions. And in a sense, you find out exactly who you are and what you like and what you dislike to the nth degree. And that's just a great lesson at the end that rounds it all up.
I think out of the three, that last one is one that I'll definitely be looking forward to because, I think you're right. I think people's perception of what a real Royal Marine can do may not reflect actually what goes on. So I think it'd be great to hear your opinion on that particular topic. Gareth, that was absolutely amazing. And just to finish off, we always ask our guests this one question. If you could pick a guest to be on the Progress Theory, who would you choose? Is there anyone in particular that you've always wanted to speak to and find a little bit more about them and their work?
I think Elon Musk.
Cool.
I'd like to speak to him, and then if I can choose two, Elon Musk and then David Attenborough. I'd like to speak to them too. I think it'd be fantastic. But Elon Musk definitely on his mindset. I just think he's a fascinating guy, and what he's doing is absolutely incredible. I think it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I think that would be quite fascinating to truly understand the mindset behind someone that's clearly very intelligent, works ridiculous hours, and then is never really satisfied. Wants to continually improve the world. A lot of the things that he's created with his businesses are stuff to try and improve the world in some form, whether it be electric cars or, I don't know, space exploration. But yeah, that's a great choice, definitely. We've not had that choice yet as well, so.
Right, well.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, Gareth, that was perfect. Thank you very much, and I look forward to reading the book.
Thanks, mate. Again, it's been a real pleasure, and just thanks again, Phil, for having me on. It's been great. Thank you, mate.
That's been brilliant. Cheers, buddy.